Welcome to the Anthropology in Business podcast, where you'll learn about the many ways anthropology is applied in business and why business anthropology is one of the most effective lenses for making sense of organizations and consumers. Through conversations with leading anthropologists working in advertising, marketing, consumer behavior, organizational culture, user experience, and many other roles, you'll learn firsthand what it means to do business anthropology and how the work differs from academic anthropology. We will discuss issues like the pace and depth of research in business, our visibility and influence as practitioners, and what we can do to build our brand. We will also focus on the value and impact of our research in business so that we can help business leaders understand why they should be hiring anthropologists. I'm your host, Matt Artz, a business anthropologist specializing in design anthropology and working at the intersection of product management, user experience, and business strategy. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Anthropology and Business podcast. I'm here today with Natalia Usme Manrique. And Natalia is a service designer at S4N, a co-owner at Flipa, which is a business anthropology consultancy. She's also the co-founder and editor of the first digital magazine for business anthropology in LATAM, created the first worldwide online business anthropology summit for LATAM. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about your background, of course, Natalia. We're going to talk a little bit about business anthropology, in context of, say, Colombia and LATAM, some of the initiatives that you're engaged in, a little bit about what you're doing to bring anthropology outside of academia. But I'd first like to actually start with your degree, because you received a degree in applied cultural analysis, which obviously relates, right? And cultural analysis is broadly what we're doing. But could you just tell us a little bit about that program? Why was it called applied cultural analysis versus anthropology? And, what did you get out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Matt, for the invite. And welcome everyone to this episode. So in regards to my background, I have a master's in applied cultural analysis, like you mentioned, from Lund University. And I remember the first week of university, they told us you need to use these theoretical frames in order to understand the reality, the context that different people, different customers of several experiences are using in order to behave or to be in the world. So they set us on an adventure, and we needed to explore the city. We were in Lund, in the south of Sweden, and we needed to explore the city. And we needed to reframe an experience, a specific experience, into the cultural analytical framework. And we needed to create a storytelling. We needed to brand that experience by using the theoretical aspects. So my group and I, we ended up in the cemetery, and we needed to understand the different practices, the rituals, the habits, the myths that were embedded within that experience, and what did it meant to be in the cemetery. What it didn't meant for, of course, the situation, the place as an experience. What did it mean for people that went to visit their families, or the person that were there. And when we realized that it was not just about doing the ethnographical research. We needed to use different frameworks in order to really go in depth on what was happening there. What were the discourses, the social discourses, for example, the cultural aspects that were embedded within that site. And we needed to use them in order to create a strategy in order to rebrand that experience, if you can call it an experience. So, and I'm telling this story because that's what cultural analysis is. You use different anthropological, sociological theories in order to understand the context, in order to create this strategy and to deliver something for the business. And when I say something, I do not want to sound reductionist, but something is how to package this mindset, how to package the tactical aspects that you need to embed within a product, within a service. So for 2 years, that's what we did. We did a lot of reading from different theoretical aspects, And then we were encouraged to use them in a very active way. Because when I see, what I see oftentimes is that people are used to read the theory. Yeah, it serves as a model of thinking and as a way to see and perceive the world, but they do not actually think as the theory can actually be the methodology. So I think that there's a space of opportunity if we can see that theories are actually alive. They're not just for reading, but you can actually use them when you are creating a strategy for the business, for an experience, for the public, or for the private sector. So in a very high level, that's what applied cultural analysis meant to me and, well, to the group I graduated with.
Good. Thanks for sharing that. And so I'm curious what, prior to that in, what we call undergrad here, I'm not sure what you call it in Colombia necessarily, but you studied languages, modern languages. So what made you go from that to applied cultural analysis, and why did you pick that program, say, over something that was called anthropology? Any reason?
Well, I did my bachelor's in modern languages, but it was with focus on organizational culture and organizational communication. So I do see a link with cultural analysis or organizational anthropology, because very early in my career, I realized that I needed to understand people. I needed to understand how companies were behaving, what they thought was the world like, how they created the products, the services, what was the mindset, what was the intention that they had, and how that made or created an impact in the whole system. So in the bachelor's, I very soon pick up that I wanted to study people, how they behave, but within the organizational side or frame. And that's how I ended up choosing Sweden, choosing Lund University, because my main interested was to understand the why behind both of the sides, the organization and how humans reacted to what organizations were providing for them, be it employee experience or you can call it for the final client. It was very interesting and intriguing for me to understand the sense-making process of these items. So that's why I chose to go on this adventure.
Good. And so, so in your case, you wanted to work in business. At least it sounds that way, right? From the start, you didn't do the path that many people did, which is anthropology degree, and then I need a job. What am I going to do and come back? So we actually are alike in that way, where basically we got these sort of degrees for this purpose. So considering that, you always were on this path to apply that knowledge in the business sector. But at some point in time, you came across the concept of business anthropology, and maybe not initially. Do you know when that was and how that happened?
It was when I was doing my master's, because to be super honest, I didn't know what I was doing. What is a cultural analyst? At least here in Latam, in Colombia, it doesn't ring a bell. You don't really understand, like, I'm reading Foucault, I'm reading Irving Goffman. What am I going to do with this? I don't really get what's the applied version on my career. And I started to analyze, to talk with different people, to search, in different environments, like, what's the main goal of a cultural analyst? What can I do in the private sector? And that's when I realized, by looking at different companies and different business cases, that what I was doing was actually, from my understanding and my perspective, business anthropology. I was conducting ethnographical fieldwork with that little ingredient that I don't really think that too much people take advantage of. And I think it's an asset of turning, like I mentioned, theories into methodologies. And I could do that. I could create a product and a service or an experience and deliver a product and a service with a purpose that was different from what other people were doing. And as you can see, while I'm talking, I'm not just focused on the research side. I'm really, really focused on the applied side. Like, what's the end deliverable that I can give to businesses? So it was, I would say it was a soul searching process. I wasn't really sure at the beginning what I would end up with, but yeah, it all got me to here, to talking with you about the process. Yeah.
So you are, you mentioned how you've done a few things first in Colombia, right? With Flipa and the summit and and the digital magazine. So could you just maybe share with us all, you're the first person from Colombia to be on here, and I'd like to know, what does the business anthropology community look like in Colombia today? I mean, I do know from LinkedIn and a few other places, you do see sort of a growing amount of people identifying that way from Colombia. It does seem like UX, service design, are growing. But just could you give us, for anybody in the States or elsewhere in the world, a little overview of what that industry looks like right now?
Well, when we began with Flipa, that is 2014, 2016, it was pretty, how to say it in English, it was a pretty empty field, I would say. There was no one because people were super afraid of calling themselves business anthropologists. And I think that you have heard this before. Mm-hmm. There's a narrative where you cannot go and suggest your services for different companies because you're selling yourself for something that is believed that is bad. So we at Flipa, we started to create this public discourse on the benefits that business anthropology has. Of course, for the companies, but different anthropologists started to hear what we were saying. They were pretty much engaged. They had different questions about, what are you doing? How does it work? What are the benefits? What are the trade-offs that you're going to make working with companies? And suddenly what I saw was a change within the mindset and discourse. People that I know that, for example, you mentioned LinkedIn, they had their how to say, their description, anthropologists. And now you see them business anthropologists. So I think that could be a little detailed, but I think it speaks volumes of the progression and evolution of how we are perceiving the forces of anthropology in the applied field. When we started, of course, we started doing public talks for different companies. So it was both anthropologists and public and companies that started to realize the benefits out of having an anthropologist thinking on the whole system and really giving a different perspective. I do know other companies here. I know companies here in Colombia that are actually working with business anthropologists, and I'm super glad that they are conducting or developing this extra message for people that are still at the university. They do not know what to do. It's like an existential crisis, right? Like, what am I going to do after I finish my studies? So these are different companies. Flipa, well, I could name some, but I will not. There are other companies that are working on that. And I actually have really close acquaintances that are working on how to lift the veil that exists, because there are lots of myths. Then again, companies do not know what anthropologists or anthropology can do, is able to do. You're going to conduct research and that's it? No, that's not it. I can do the whole process. You trust me, I will get back to you with the results and deliverables. So we are really creating, I would say, a new wave here in Colombia. And I'm really happy about that, I must say.
Yeah, it's great. Congrats on that. So I want to come back to the deliverables in just a second, but to stay on the Colombia track for a few more minutes, I'm curious to know, is it getting picked up in academia at all by, not by the students per se, but by those who are teaching and administrators? Are they seeing the value in this at all?
That's a really great question, Matt. I would say there's still a very traditional discourse within academia. We were in 2019, we were at the National Congress of Anthropology, and there was like a small section of business anthropology. I went on, I gave my discourse, I presented the business case that we were working for, and you know what? The room was empty. They left. So I think that also speaks volumes about like the frictions that we still have. I think that they are still creating this mental model around anthropology that's the bad side of anthropology. Do not dare to go there because that's not ethical. You're going to do wrong. They are going to mess up with your processes. That's not really ethnography. If we're talking about 2-3 weeks of field work, for example. So what are you doing? Are you corrupting the profession? The reality, it is not. I mean, we are in 2021. They need to change. They need to evolve. And I don't know if we are here in Latam and in Colombia. And I do know that in other countries, in other geographies, it's pretty much the same. I don't know if you're ready for that change. I mean, anthropology, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, but you certainly need it if you want to stay alive. There's no other way around. We need new processes. We need new discourses. We need an open mindset in order to project the benefits that our profession, and I am a cultural analyst, but I will include myself as an anthropology. If we want to survive, we need to progress. And I don't know, academia is not ready for that, at least here in Colombia, from what I have seen, of course.
Yeah, not much here. There's a few programs here, but by and large, it's the same. So, yeah, it's. I didn't expect something else necessarily, because that's what you hear from most people that we talk to. But just wanted to check in. So in there, and we'll make our way to the deliverables. But you were talking about that that the work is not unethical, that the speed or pace of research is not a problem. So, in my master's program, the pace was already quick, right? I wasn't off for a year doing research. So, and I always worked in business. So that was never shocking to me. And it makes perfect sense why it's that fast in business. But I'd like to get your input on, what is your argument to people who are, aside from needing to stay relevant, what's your argument to say that it is ethical work, that it is important work, that we need to be involved in this?
Okay, so my answer is going to be a little bit existentialist because what's ethical? You need to decide that, it is not the business that is going to make you unethical, right? You have your own ways of thinking, your habits, your positions within the world, and you understand when a project is ethical or not ethical from the brief. Let's say an example. So not by going into the actual project, you're going to say, oh my God, 3 months in advance within the project, this is unethical. No, you're going to realize it way before that, and then you're going to make a decision. So in life, we're going to face different projects. Some of them are going to be a little bit messy, unethical, and then you are in the position, of course, of deciding if you want to take or not. You will not take that project, but you are in the position of making that decision for yourself. Businesses are not per se, not most of them, some of them perhaps, but not all of them are bad or unethical. And you have agency in order to put yourself first and your profession. So that's my take on that. You are the one that decides what project you take, which projects you choose to take. And from that view or from that point of view, you are freely going to work on sustainable projects. You're going to work on employee experiences for companies that truly care about people, that are people first. You're going to work on a product that is going to enhance people in need. So it is all about you and not so much as the options that that company present to you. So when we turn that into, oh my God, businesses are so bad and I'm not going to get into them. No, you have the liberty to choose. Go ahead and make the right decisions. I think that, yeah, that would be my argument towards how to perceive what's in front of us, and be able to choose. It's super simple, it's practical, it's pragmatic, and it works. Yeah.
So in terms of the work you've done, you have, wherever I was reading a bio, you mentioned, everything from sort of marketing, UX, service design. So, you've seemed to, I think, and even organizational. So you've, kind of at least dipped your toe in like lots of different areas that we apply this knowledge, these skills. And so I'd like to get maybe just a sense of, considering that now you took a service design role, and we'll get there and we can talk about that role in a little bit more detail, because I actually haven't gone into detail of service design much on the podcast yet. So we'll get there. But I'd like to know, like along the way, tell us a little bit about the process. Obviously, so you're part of Flipa, it's an agency or a consultancy. So you're picking up clients that are in different industries or have different needs. So what was the process like of you sort of consulting in all those different ways? Again, UX, service design, organizational, marketing.
Well, in order to tell you about that, I think I need to tell super quick, of course, the story about Flipa. I actually, the first stakeholder that I needed to convince about the power of business anthropology or applied cultural analysis was my business partner. And you know her, she's Giovanna, right? You met her at the summit. I don't know if you know this, but she's my mother. This is a family company. So when I arrived from my master's degree, she's a business administrator, like as her profession. And she's all about numbers. She's all about a strategy, business. And I was telling her or sharing that, no, we need to use social sciences. We need to understand context. It was very messy for her at the beginning and it was very confusing. But I got there. I really sold that out. And I told her, okay, Joanna, so what if we get together, we create this partnership and we start working with the clients that your company already has, because Flipa has 18 years in the market. So we have different types of clients, especially from the banking sector. So we had an opportunity because no one in Colombia was doing what I was suggesting to Giovanna. So I convinced her and we started creating this messaging, this approach to the clients that we had, the base that we already had. And they were curious. They were interested about what we could do. So that's how we ended up approaching it and having like our first set of clients specifically as business anthropologists for the consultancy on that area. And we started working with internal processes at the beginning. So how to design a change management process for a digital transformation. And this was for a brewing company, for AB InBev, for 18,000 people. And we sold the project mainly based on the idea that, and this was super new, I know that what I'm going to say is not new for you, that we needed to understand the needs, the behaviors that the employees had around digital processes, around different contextual aspects that they have been facing because they were merging, two companies were merging. So that was going to impact the digital transformation. What were the notions that they had around this process? What were they going to think about? What were the imaginaries? and et cetera, et cetera. So we started with this type of projects. The hush started to spread out. We began to work with IT companies, with LAMBI, which is the National Association of Entrepreneurs here in Colombia, and with different clients that understood the value. And we sort of started to expand on the services that we had: organizational culture, organizational communication, change management. Then we faced with projects with UX research, marketing, and it was a seemingly easy process or transition or hybrid, because at the end of the day, what we were doing is that we were conducting research fieldwork. We were using our toolkit of theories, and it was very organic. Of course, you need a set of specific knowledges or knowledge within different items, but we had a team with different with a different set of knowledge that would enhance what anthropology was the base, and then the team UX, customer experience, they would enhance it by using those lenses that we already had and the methodology that we had created.
Got it. And so, and that gives some context, because originally I was thinking, that it was maybe a little bit smaller of a team and that you were doing a lot of it. And where I was going with that is, a lot of people really specialize in one of those areas for the most part. You see some overlap, but you generally don't see somebody doing organizational marketing, UX, or design necessarily. So, that makes a little bit more sense. But you've now, with those experiences, have decided to focus on service design. So I'd be curious to know, is there anything along the way that sort of pointed you in this direction?
Yeah, I was pretty much in love with service design. In 2016, we had a project in which we had to design a service for an organization, and we needed to take a look at the different touch points that existed, at the value proposition of the company, and how to engage people from the beginning to the end of the process. And within the project, I really understood that this was it, for at least for my path as a cultural analyst. What I was looking was having a systemic or a holistic thinking. And service design is exactly like that. You need to take a high level look, but you also need to be super, super detailed with everything that happens within the experience. So I knew that I would really enjoy this, and I wanted to make a switch and work specifically with a tech company here in Colombia or elsewhere. And right now I'm working, for example, in employee experience, in designing the value proposition of this tech company, in the career path. I'm in different projects, career path, some projects within talent acquisition. And I'm really enjoying it because, like I mentioned, it is all about details, but it is also having like a strategic mindset in order to understand the trade-offs, the risks, the needs both of the business that you are helping with creating, and of course the employees. And that's pretty much it. It really happened super fast because I have been in this company for 5 months. So lots of learning, but also really understanding that there's a true match between business anthropology or applied cultural analysis and what I'm doing as a service designer.
And so in this experience, are you getting to bring, a lot of the theory to bear on the work that you're doing? And, I appreciate that we don't always get to verbally discuss such things in a lot of workplaces. But are you finding that you're really able to bring what you learned in cultural analysis into this process?
Yeah, I have been able, and I'm happy about that. Because I think, and of course, this is only my perception, but I think that my team is they are designers, industrial designers, graphic designers, etc. And I'm the only anthropologist. So what I think that I bring into the table is this ability, then again, to use the theoretical frameworks and translate them into specifically the employee experience. So, for example, if we're talking about creating rewards for intrinsical and extrinsical rewards for the employee, how are we going to do it? So, what if we use this idea of this notion of the gift? How can we create exchanges or a certain dynamics of consumption of experiences? What are we giving to that employee? What are we achieving with that experience? And how we create a solid relationship, but by this exchange of notions, be it material, virtual, etc. So I think that that's one of the key items I have used. For example, this notion of the gift. I also bring up oftentimes Irving Goffman in regards of the theatrical side, the back and the front stage. What can we do, for example, as the talent acquisition process? It is a very theatrical moment when you're interviewing a candidate, right? You need to sell all your company, your whole company in 30 minutes or perhaps an hour. How do you create an experience in order not to seem super generic like other companies? And that's when the theatrical side comes to life. What do I do in the back? How do I become an actor in front of my audiences? What is the key relational aspect that I want to create for my audiences? How do I become memorable for them when there's so much competition? So there are lots of bits of theories that I have sold to the internal stakeholders, of course with patience and strategy. But yeah, it's sold.
So let's just expand on that a little. So, frequently on the podcast, I have talked to people about, how you communicate, sort of insights or how you sell these ideas, whether that's theory that's backing it up or certain recommendations you might be making. And so, have you found anything that works well for you to communicate, the value of what you're suggesting?
I think that's the tricky part because I cannot say like I have the magic formula for all the people that are hearing us to use, because I'm still working on that, to be super honest. And I think, and this might sound cliche, but it is the ability to use a compelling storytelling as you're selling it. Perhaps business people are not interested in knowing, okay, this is Irving Goffman, or this is no, they're interested in what's the model that I'm going to use. So if you can translate what is super, super theoretical into a series of high level steps, if you can show them what are going to be the benefits and the outcomes as for the experience that they are trying to create, you're going on the right path. And of course, you need to talk about money, because yeah, businesses are money, right? So you need to talk about the revenue or how it's going to positively impact what you're discussing in order to sell these items to your audience. So yeah, I think it's about rebranding what you learned that is super, super conceptual, and organize it in a way that it seems more related to the business language that they use. Perhaps you get this answer all the time, but I think this really works. You really need to work on it because it's not easy, but that's the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it implies understanding their drivers, their motivations, their language really well.
Now that now that you mention it, for example, one of the things that I honestly do is that I have my own company dictionary. So I really, it's like doing ethnography, right? So you need to understand this language that they have. What are the words that really trigger positive notions or that get approvals from the business side? So I really have my whole deck, my document on, okay, these are the keywords that I need to use in order to sell them an idea. Perhaps not going so theoretical, what are the key items. And in that way, if I mimic what they are talking about on how they are talking about certain items, I increase my chances on really getting to them to the point of making a decision around an anthropological theme that is rebranded. So have a dictionary that really works.
It's a good suggestion. So you earlier, at some point when we were talking, mentioned, strategy. And so, and elsewhere online, it seems like you're focused on really what is the outcome, of the work that you're doing. And you just said, it's about money. So, presumably you are focused on at least maybe not I don't want to put words into your mouth, but essentially like, a sustainable sort of outcome, right, that provides value. And so considering that you sort of frequently mention, the importance of this mindset, could you talk a little bit about, how you bring anthropology into the strategic work you do and what that really means for you?
Okay, so right now I'm working on different practices as for this specific company as a service designer. For example, let's talk about value proposition. And when you're talking about the value proposition of, just to make a specific example of how to use a strategy, when you're talking about value proposition of a company, you cannot talk about you can, but at the very beginning, you cannot talk about the tactical side. And I think as anthropologists or social scientists or cultural analysts, we are pretty much focused, at least a very large part of our work, it's conducting ethnography, right? To understand what the audiences, what people are thinking. And ethnography, it's confused because I don't think so. I don't think it's this case, but it seems very tactical. Like you go there, you create your questions or whatever, you use different methods, and you go into the field, you take action, and then you analyze it. Of course, there's a strategy behind that, but oftentimes we forget that as social scientists. I conduct ethnography. Yeah, okay, you conduct ethnography, but you do something else. The pre-work in order to achieve that ethnographical aspect that you want is strategical. You need to think about how to approach the people. You need to think about what type of questions you're going to frame in order to really get interesting answers. You need to think about how to present the results for different stakeholders. So there's a strategic side at the very beginning, and I would say within the journey, but at the very beginning, that it's oftentimes forgotten, misrepresented. And why am I talking about this? Because that specific moment, the mentality that you use is the same thing or the same item that you need to use when you're working on strategical projects, such as value proposition. When you're talking about value proposition, then again, in order to take my example, you're not talking about, okay, we're going to do fieldwork. You're talking about the structural side of a company, the purpose, the position, the why we need to do this. What's the direction? What is it our route or our objective And what is our intention? What are the consequences behind the actions that of the model that we are going to create? How are we going to create a meaningful experience, product, or service for our audiences? So when you start to ask these questions, as you notice, these are not tactical questions. When do I do fieldwork? How I no. These questions are talking about the broader system that encompasses being and developing and designing within a company. So we need to really take a step back as anthropologists and understand that we truly are strategic if we set out to be strategic. If we understand that we have a purpose, we have the ability of shaping the right questions in the right moments. And those questions are what are going to lead different stakeholders or different actors involved within a project to set the clear route or the clear path within a project and not miss out or lose focus in something that is super, super tactical. What is the essence of what I'm doing? Why is it important? And I think when you follow that recipe, then you are able to be strategic or start to be strategic in some way.
Okay. And so you like to share your perspective as you're doing on this podcast, but also in your own ways. So, with the digital magazine, with the summit, you are really trying to get this message out there. Of course, there's, a benefit to Flipa, right? There is a portion of that helps the organization be seen, potentially get customers, etc. But I know from talking to you, you also just have an interest in sort of spreading the good word, helping other people understand the value of business anthropology. And I think that's both within the business anthropology community and the business sector at large. And you could, I think from speaking with you, it's also in academia and outside of academia. So could you maybe tell us, what kind of got you kicked off on this path to start an online summit, to start the digital magazine?
I knew there was a need. When I got to Colombia, I very, very, very fast understood that there was an important lack of knowledge. There was a void that I needed to fill in very fast in order for people to really understand what anthropology was. When it wasn't, I cannot tell you to point out like a moment of time, but I very quickly knew that was my purpose and the purpose of Flipa. Of course, it brings clients, it creates awareness of the on the company, but that's not our purpose. Our purpose is for that young guy or young girl or young person that's 23 and it's at the second semester of anthropology to hear about, oh my God, Flipa is telling me, or whatever, Natalia Usme is sharing with me, or someone told me that anthropologists can really apply or can really work within the business sector, that there is a path that I can continue when I finish or when I graduate. I have value, or I'm valuable for as for my profession, because I see one time I actually talked with an anthropologist. She was a young girl. She was within one of our courses at Flipa. We have different online courses on business anthropology at our academy, and we ended up one of these courses, and she started crying. And I'm not telling it; it sounds super like but it is the actual truth. She started crying, and she started saying "Thank you very much. I really wasn't aware that I could do ABC, what we saw on the course. I didn't know that I could do this. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to apply all this knowledge after I graduated. Like, you have opened my eyes in regards of my future, of my possibilities. So that was a very special moment for us, because that's the purpose. You need to understand that you can actually do this with all the theoretical side that you have learned. You can apply it. So you need to believe in yourself. You need to start focusing on UX research, service design, whatever, but you can do it. Trust me.
And you can get paid.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a really nice outcome of the work that we have done at Flipa. And as for Flipa the magazine, which is the magazine that you were referring, we are just very passionate about it. We have talked about diversity and inclusion. We have talked about designing a value proposition. We have talked about market trends, and all of this, of course, image within how to perceive it, how to use it from an anthropological side. We have 12 editions or issues so far, and we are very happy about it. Then again, because we want to democratize what business anthropology, or call it cultural analysis, is and what it can do for teams. Also, because oftentimes they say, "Oh, I'm a UX researcher," or "I do ethnography on the marketing side." Yeah, are you doing it? Are you sure? Because they often forget context. They often forget that the user is not a user. He, she, or the person is a human. There are lots of things, lots of variables that you need to understand and to consider in order to conduct, for example, an actual UX research. So I think that the magazine really brings awareness on how to expand your mindset as a practitioner in any field, actually, and how to use these context-centric tools that we share. But our main goal is just to create awareness, to spread the passion that we have, because we are very passionate about it. We believe in it, and that's pretty much it. That's the secret. We also created the summit that we had back in, it was in,
May? I think May.
Yeah, it was in May. Sorry. Thank you, man. It was in May. This edition was about artificial intelligence and social sciences. How do they unify? How do they mesh in order to create different solutions, strategies, or even analysis for the business realm? And it was very interesting. And we do it we want to spread out the work. We want to bring people such as you that have been working on the field. So in order of these young people that are hearing you to understand what are the possibilities, what is the future of our profession. Because, for example, we talked about Python, and then again, the discourse of anthropology needs to evolve. We need to talk about digital methods. We need to talk about artificial intelligence. And we brought a set of 13 speakers exactly to do just that, to encourage young minds. I'm going to sound super commercial here, but yeah, it is like that. Encourage young minds to think differently about their profession and to understand what the future holds. And if they want to take a look just out of curiosity, that's good for us, just to see what's around.
Great. Yeah, well, obviously, I think we share something there, because a lot of this podcast is very much about showing other people the journey that they can go on. And certainly the summit was great. I recommend everybody check it out next year, the magazine as well. And so do you have any future plans for the summit or magazine beyond what it is today?
That's a very good question. No, I wouldn't. Right now, I cannot give you a definite answer, but what we're aiming for is creating a community, a digital community. So perhaps within that path, but it is pretty raw right now. I couldn't tell you with certainty. What we expect is, of course, for the magazine to keep growing, creating awareness. And as for the summit, like I mentioned, a community of practitioners. How? It is to be defined. That would be my answer. Yeah.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing where it goes. I'm sure it will be great, whatever you do, as the previous one. So, in sort of one of the last things, considering how much you're interested in inspiring others, something I ask a lot of people, though not everybody, is what you might recommend to somebody else who wants to do this. And of course, that's, it could, of course, they could attend a summit. They could take the courses that you have at the Flipa website. They could look at the magazine. But aside from those kind of things, what would you suggest somebody do if they want to start their own consultancy, business anthropology focused as you have, or, just kind of get into this work, whether it's UX, service design, organizational, whatever it may be? Any last thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing is that you need to change or reframe your mindset. Because if you have spent the last 5 years at university, and I say this with all respect, of course, but they are telling you business is bad. So you're going to start believing it because you're conditioned, you're primed into a certain way of thinking. So the first thing it would be to give you the opportunity to think differently about businesses. That's the main and key aspect that is going to allow you to approach it. So number 2 would be to really understand businesses. So you need to, for example, take a read, take different courses on how businesses actually work. What is the whole process that involves creating a product, creating a service, or creating an experience from the back, not for the front, of course, but from the back and operational side. And what's the strategic thinking that these stakeholders that you're going to approach, what's the thinking, the way of thinking that they have. Once you do that ethnographic fieldwork, whether you want to create a company or you want to start working in some of these fields, you need to start. And then again, I think this is going to be cliche, but it works. You need to start creating your own projects if you don't have any current positions or possibilities to join a company. So what am I going to do? So I'm going to start working on doing ethnography on the influencers of the future and how they are going to be based on artificial intelligence, and we're not going to have human influencers. That's just to give you an example.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to use ethnographic thinking, perhaps ethnofiction. Then I'm going to create a business case and I'm going to suggest these key learnings, but I'm not just going to arrive to the research side. Then again, if you want to go into the other side, I'm going to present a set of strategical actions. I'm going to present a set of tactical actions, and I'm going to share it with ABC person or stakeholders. And in that way, I'm going to start thinking in the whole process, the systemic thinking, and not just be focusing, which is not bad, of course, but then again, you have other options. And I'm not just going to be thinking about ethnographic research and thinking that's pretty much it, because that's not how it works. For businesses, they want results, they want something that is truly applicable, and that would be my advice or on a high level.
Great, wonderful, thanks for that. It's very very helpful, I'm sure, for many. So for anybody, is there anything that you'd like to mention that, anything you want to plug? I know we talked about the summit and the magazine. Anything else?
No, just keep believing that you can do applied elements, that you can work for the private sector. Give you the opportunity to think differently from what you have thought. Challenge it. that's the way of thinking. Challenge everything that you think it's normal or it's usual. That's actually one of the items of anthropology. And I think that as for your career, that's what you need to do and decide whatever you want, but understanding the different possibilities that you have. That would be my key message.
Wonderful. And where can everybody find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, like you mentioned, Natalia Usme Manrique. That's how you can find me now on LinkedIn. And on Instagram, Natalia, I don't know how to say it in English. Raya al piso, I have to say it, like the
underscore,
yeah. Natalia underscore anthropológica. And yeah, you can find me there, and on Twitter at Natalia Usme. And that's pretty much it. If you want to talk, I will be there.
Fantastic. I'll link to all of those. So Natalia, thanks very much. It was great talking to you.
Thank you very much, Matt, for the invite. I really enjoyed our talk, and I hope that this makes our audiences or your audiences think about how they approach their profession.
Thank you for listening to the Anthropology in Business podcast. To learn everything you need to break into business anthropology and why business anthropology is one of the best lenses for contributing to business success, visit my website at mattartz.me, where I cover many topics related to business anthropology and beyond. There you will find all the podcast episodes, blogs, and news. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.